Um,
Greetings, my fellow fleeters, and welcome to the IC edition of CQ Snapshots, where we talk to the people who serve the fleet and beyond. And for this edition, we have a double duty of Commanders Starfleet. Now, keep in mind that this interview is being pre recorded, and we will not be taking any questions, but you can ask our special guest during your time at the International Conference. First off, I would like to formally introduce the 26th Commander of Starfleet, Fleet Admiral David Nottage. David, welcome to CQ Snapshots.
Thank you very much, and it's great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. Now, you're wondering who's our next guest. Now, in my 22 years as a reporter, I have interviewed many people over the years, but not like today's guest. As a nerdy kid in East Texas, he's founded the USS Enterprise Star Trek fan club on October of 1974, a day before his 15th birthday. 9 months later, in June of 1975, that club that he led had blossomed into the organization known as Starfleet International, and he became its very first commander from June of 1975 to December of 1977. Since then, he has taken his dream of being among the stars to making it a reality by supporting NASA's human spaceflight programs for nearly 4 decades. My friends of the fleet, let's give a warm welcome to the very first commander of Starfleet International, Fleet Admiral John Bradbury, retired. John, welcome to CQ Snapshots.
Thank you very much, Dean and David. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you.
Thank you so much for making the time. I know you've been doing some travels lately. Um, One of the first questions that I've wanted to ask you is who were you when you started the USS Enterprise? That time period of the Enterprise going moving into Starfleet.
Well, as Dean mentioned, I was a nerdy kid. I was probably seventh or eighth grade. We had just moved to a new town, and my parents had emphasized academics and the importance of getting good grades. And so I was a good student. Always did well in school. Eventually ended up graduating as valedictorian in my high school. And academics was a big thing. I was in band. Didn't really do athletics, although I liked baseball, but didn't wasn't able to play little league or something like that. And the had not been able to watch Star Trek much when it came on network broadcast originally, partly because I was too young, and partly because where we lived, this was before cable, and so you had to use a regular old antenna. And the station that carried Star Trek was not. It was the poorest received station where we were, so a lot of times you couldn't see it anyway. And I think I remember seeing a couple of episodes, at least parts of them, and I think my parents decided I was too young to either it came on too late or something. Anyway, I only saw a couple of them. But when we moved to Lufkin, we the local television station started carrying the Star Trek reruns at 4 o'clock in the afternoon during the week, and I remember started watching those after school, and I was hooked from the start. It just really appealed to me. I had previously been, had watched the Apollo moon landings and been interested in the space program as a result of that. And then my mother had also introduced me to science fiction, reading books by Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein, and then on to others as well. I generally liked the hard science writers as opposed to the more fantastic stuff. So, Star Trek appealed to me in that regard, and that, this was, certainly an extrapolation of what might be possible, but, it it had enough of the technology and technological things that interested me, and then the stories were great too. So
Nice. That's fantastic. It's good to know who you were when everything kind of began for all of us. Dean, you kind of had a follow-up question onto that?
Well, absolutely, especially since I found out during the research that you created the Star Trek fan club USS Enterprise a day before you turned 15. I remember when I was 15, that's when I found out about Starfleet International. Can you walk us through the genesis of creating the prototype that will become Starfleet International 9 months later?
so I don't remember for certain, but I believe, as I was watching the show and getting more and more interested about that in Star Trek, somehow or another we heard about a Star Trek convention that was being held in Houston, about 2 hours away, and I convinced my parents to take me to that, and that was my introduction to the larger world of Star Trek fandom, and seeing uh, vendors with various products, and I particularly like blueprints and stuff like that. So in fact, one of my prized possessions is a copy of the USS Enterprise blueprints autographed by James Doohan Montgomery Scott.
Oh, wow.
So
Right.
I don't remember if it was at that first convention or if it was a later one, but that was, to me, that was really, really cool.
Before we go in too much into the fandom, one of the pieces that Dean had said is, so what essentially affected the transition from the USS Enterprise to what is Starfleet?
Okay, well, the USS Enterprise was started local to the area I lived in, and so the initial members were some of my friends at school and so forth. And I think word spread to various family members or friends of current members who lived elsewhere, and we got interest from other places in joining the club. And of course, we accepted everybody, but it soon became apparent that it was going to be tough to have a starship crew that was so widely distributed, and so we decided that it made more sense to have separate chapters, maybe different starships in different locations, and so then that kind of naturally followed from with have an organization that was patterned after Starfleet, like in the
So
show. So
Starfleet came out of the growth of the popularity of something that you created.
yes,
That's
yes.
that's that's fantastic. All right, switching back to the fandom for a little bit. You mentioned this first convention in Houston that you went to, which is our Region 3. Good shout out to Region 3. And want to what was fandom like then? Um, and how is it different than what you see it as now?
Um, well, I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure I have a very good view of how it is now. I mean, I obviously with things like the internet and Zoom calls and things like that, there's a lot more ability to operate geographically distributed chapters and so forth. Um, back then there were fanzines. People people published fan fiction and so
Mhm.
forth, which I presume is still done today. But you had to actually print up a physical copy of something and mail it, and or people would sell them at conventions that were held periodically. And the conventions, they would have screenings of Star Trek episodes, or they'd have special guests and who would speak or sign autographs or whatever, depending on who they were. Vendors selling all sorts of things, like I said, blueprints, patches, shirts, fanzines.
Anything and everything that you could get.
Yeah. And then the Star Trek Well Committee had the directory of fan clubs, and reason I started USS Enterprise is I wanted, I had the idea that it'd be cool to play like you're in Starfleet, but I didn't see any clubs listed in the directory at the time that sounded like that, so started my own. And then said it evolved into Starfleet, which again at that time there didn't seem to be an equivalent club already. So, and here we are.
Excellent. Dean, did you I believe had another question that was along this? We'll call it the Genesis line.
Indeed. So at the age of 16, we all did a lot of things, myself included. You were the very first commander of Starfleet, and you ran the organization for a little over 2 years. You touched briefly on what made up Starfleet back then. What were some of your goals as the commander of Starfleet for those 2 years? You've been the commander. Did you reach out and try to expand Starfleet from Texas to different states or different regions in the country?
A little bit. I mean, we put an ad in a fanzine that I think I'd heard about down in at the convention in Houston, and of course listed ourselves in the Star Trek Well Committee's monthly. They had a directory in their monthly newsletter, Piece of the Action, and people just kind of found us, and it appealed to them, and they sent their money in, and we signed them up, and so the one of the challenges, of course, was producing the newsletter, which I think we started on about a every other month basis, and coming up with content for that. I think I wrote a few articles, some other people did, and anytime you're running a volunteer organization, it's a challenge because some people participate a lot and some people don't, and that's okay. I mean, nothing wrong with that. And they are volunteers, but at the same time, you have an expectation of trying to produce, what you promised them, and so. We came out with ID cards and yeah.
So you brought something up that people actually did pay into Starfleet on the conception. Just out of curiosity, how much were the dues?
I think USS Enterprise, it was $2 a year, and I think when it became Starfleet, it was $3 a year. I double checked that. I think I found the original newsletters where it transitioned from USS Enterprise to Starfleet, and yeah, we had to raise the dues, but.
Sure. Well, of course, our dues structure has changed over the course of the years. We've been at the high at 15. We've dropped back down to 5, depending on what the organization itself was producing, and how many volunteers and everything that we had. We just had a dues increase to $10. And that seems to be the kind of the golden point for us right now with everything that we're doing going forward, that we'll talk about as we get further along into this. Ultimately, what do you feel that your dream was for Starfleet? Was it about camaraderie? Was it about And you did touch on it a little bit, the play acting, so we can maybe call that an initial form of cosplay. Um, and, so what, for you personally, what was your dream for Starfleet?
Uh, well, like I said, it was to be able to pretend like you were a member of Starfleet, carrying out some role. I mean, for me personally, it really was the imagination part of it, of imagining that you're an engineering officer on a starship, or and dealing with the technology and everything. I mean, because again, that was what appealed the most to me. But having something that would allow people to focus on whatever it was that interested them. And if they were interested in the medical side of things, then they could focus in on those aspects. If it was command structure or whatever.
So it sounds like from the very beginning, you had um, some form of subset within Starfleet, whether it was medical, all of that. We call that the auxiliaries, and we have 7 or 8 of them in total at this point, and they continue to grow as the shows give us more good information, and different ways to go through and cosplay. Um, but it's great to hear that it started off as wanting to either emulate or be a part, not necessarily emulate the actual talent in the show, but to be a part of something bigger is kind of what I'm hearing from you. Um,
And at that time, we didn't really, we hadn't gotten to the point of having like auxiliary services or whatever, but it was
sure.
like, a starship had engineering, it had security, it had command, it had helm, navigation, had medical, and so forth. So, within a starship, you could pursue whatever area you were interested in.
Absolutely. So you and I have talked a little bit. You've kind of reintegrated yourself back into Starfleet to an extent. From what you have seen, um, have we, at least as an organization, do you think that we have grown to something that you could have foreseen, or has it gone beyond what you ever thought was possible? Kind of what are your feelings about what Starfleet is in the modern day?
Oh, it's definitely gone far beyond my wildest dreams. Like I said, when I formed this club, it was just a way to play like you were in Starfleet, and you know, um, people, after me and up to and including you guys today, have turned it into a formal charitable organization that does a lot of good in the various communities that it serves, and have really made it something that all of you should be very proud of. And I'm honored to have lit the spark that led to that, but I don't in any shape or form claim credit for that parts of it. That you guys have turned it into the organization that it is today, and I applaud you for it.
Thank you. And that goes to the applause for that goes to every CS that came after you and
Yeah.
before me. Right now we our uh, two main charitable events that we do. Of course, each chapter, each region has their own individuals that they choose. But from a Starfleet perspective, the Admiralty Board has just uh, agreed to start a partnership or start a charitable discussion at this point with the Planetary Society. So that's on global scale within the organization itself. And when I describe Starfleet to people, before I tell them it's a Star Trek fan club, I call it a philanthropic educational scholarship fund. And where it used to only be within Starfleet, but now we're giving scholarships to women in STEM that are outside. And our scholarship program, whether it's on the Starfleet, we'll call it the FEDI side, or whether it's with the Marine Corps with their scholarship program, is one of the cornerstones of this organization. Part of that too, did you, when you had started this and as it progressed, Starfleet Academy, since we're talking about the scholarships, the actual education and the programs that we have now, what do you know about what they were like then? Was there a Starfleet Academy back in the inception? Was that, I don't know all of the history, but what do you know?
I don't think we certainly didn't have anything formal at the start. And I don't recall there being, there might have been some thoughts of eventually producing something like that. But we didn't really have anything. We weren't well developed enough to have that at the time. I know that it did come along later, and I think you know that you're the second Commander Starfleet to find me. I was initially found back in 1998, and actually that was by the Starfleet historian at the time, Scott Akers.
Yes.
But
Yep.
ended up going to the IC-98, which I think was the 24th one, and but by that time they had a pretty good Starfleet Academy program in place, and obviously you guys, it has been continued beyond that and to where you are today.
I think our academy is probably one of the crowning achievements of Starfleet, with the
I could
thousands and thousands of courses that we have. Some of it probably gets created because we incorporated along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that there is some education that comes along with that, whether you're a commanding officer or a executive officer. As Starfleet has become more and more global with international members, then there are all the, and the internet and data protection and all of that kind of stuff comes up. Our leadership at least are trained to a point that they understand what they should and can do. Mm-hmm. Which is absolutely fantastic. I think, Dean, you right around here, you have another question for John.
Absolutely. And I can definitely vouch with the Commander Starfleet with the Starfleet Academy, since I've been a director and assistant director for a couple of the courses. And I've taken over 1,700 of those courses. So there are a lot of courses ranging from mathematics to the Vulcan Science Academy to the Marine courses to getting your Starship or Space Station certified. So Starfleet has grown by leaps and bounds since I've been in Starfleet for almost 30 years now. So I could definitely. So my question.
When I started, we had enough trouble getting enough content for the newsletters. So, but
we still have that. We still have that. That still happens. Yeah, no.
Yes, we do.
I assure you.
That kind of information some of that can be bootstrapped into courses and so forth. So I'm sure that was some of what happened.
And the Academy isn't just about Star Trek too, which is cool. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's still open or not, but there was a 007 institute or a curriculum. There are other television shows out there that people have wanted to have a informational course about.
Mhm.
And the Jill Rayburn and TJ, which are the current folks that are running the academy, just keep it so well tuned. It's just impressive.
Mhm.
It is indeed, especially the various courses that they have, not just with science fiction, fantasy, horror, but real life. There's even a college of U.S. presidents. There's a college for the land down under, a college about real life law. Recently, I took a course on rocketry.
Hmm.
So we really expanded the universe of knowledge that is out there for the world to see and the world to know. And this leads into a very good question that here we are, we're on the 50th anniversary of Starfleet. There's over 5,000 members, over 200 chapters worldwide. And the phenomenon, this renaissance that we've seen over the 50 years has exploded. So I have to ask the obvious question, of all the series, of all the movies, and of all the characters, who are your favorites that you want to share with us?
Um, well, I love the original series because that was what I was originally exposed to. My favorite character there was probably Montgomery Scott, again, because the engineer in me. I watched Next Generation when it first came out and was immediately hooked on that. I I like Mr. Data on that. I like Jean-Luc Picard. Will Riker has a great sense of humor, I think. Um, to be honest, as sometimes happens, life gets in the way of things, and uh, I, it may be hard to believe, but I actually have not seen all of the Next Generation episodes yet. We're in the process of rewatching. I think we're up to season 3 now, watching them off of streaming services. And I've really only seen a few episodes, actually probably not even a full episode of Deep Space Nine or Voyager. I'm not sure I've seen anything of Enterprise, and I've deliberately stayed away from the new shows because I figured I needed to catch up on the old shows first. I have seen all the movies, both in the original line and the Kelvin timeline. I I like all of them. Granted, in the original set of movies, it seemed like the even numbered ones were much better than the odd numbered ones. Although personally, I loved the flyover around the Enterprise in the first movie, Star Trek: The Motion Picture. But again, that's the geeky engineer in me. I loved Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan, the Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. That was that had a lot of cool stuff in that one, and just of course the concept of them coming back to our present day and so on, and it was a great story. Like I said, the Kelvin timeline is also very well done. Little different take on some things, but
Well,
definitely.
and hopefully in the next 4 years or so, we're going to see a lot more movies. We've got Section 31 coming out soon,
Mhm.
which is probably going to change the face of Starfleet, as they like to do. Meaning Section 31 likes to do. And we'll see how that goes. Bringing this a little bit into the present. Let's talk about IC that's coming up. And one of the cool things that's going to be happening at IC, and I don't know if I told you this in a previous conversation, but there's going to be a meeting of the TSs. I believe the count right now is 7, possibly 8, that will all get together, and we're going to have similar conversations about this. But I'm really looking forward to meeting a lot of them as my predecessors, because I don't know all of them. I've seen them sometimes online. I've talked to them online or on the phone, but the face to face is really, and that camaraderie when we get to IC is something that's just so amazing to behold. And I'm really looking forward to that. What are you looking forward to about IC?
Well, I'm looking forward to meeting people that are involved with Starfleet now, and I hope to share a few things from the history, but mostly just soak it all in and I just see what's become of my baby. I did a talk at IC 98 that I titled "Yes, It's My Fault," or "Oh my God, what have I done?"
Well, coming from the present CS, I tell you, sometimes it's like, "What have I done?" or what has been done to me sometimes. So, we in all of our administrations, whether it's me, whether it's my predecessors, we all have our goods and bads, and we with the intention of always trying to do the best that we can. I think, Dean, you have a few more questions.
Oh, absolutely. Because I want to talk a little bit going back to what you've done after Starfleet, because as we mentioned earlier, that you went from playing the stars to actually making it a reality, because you graduated from Texas A&M with a BS degree in electrical engineering, and you parlayed that knowledge into working for IBM. And then I'm a little bit jealous of you. You actually got to work in the space shuttle program by being a system tester on board with the onboard software for 15 years. And I want you to tell us about that journey, because I went to space camp and that's the closest I got to the space shuttle, was being on a space shuttle mission, but you did the real thing. Tell us about that.
Well, I had wanted to work in the space program for a long time, and but I graduated high school in 1978, so had grown up, through the end of the Apollo program, and where there were lots of engineers, lots of layoffs, and Apollo engineers driving taxi cabs and flipping burgers at McDonald's, and because the aerospace industry has a tendency to hire when times are good and lay off when times are bad, and unfortunately I had these bad habits of wanting to eat 3 times a day and sleep indoors and things like that. So I decided to pursue electrical engineering as my undergraduate degree. Figured computers were going to be big for a long time, and so figured that would be safe, if you will. And then my plan was to get a master's degree in aerospace engineering so I could work in the space program. But I learned along the way that I could work in the space program with a double E degree. And after 4 years of college, I was ready to get out and start making some money and not be studying and everything. And so I interviewed with a lot of different aerospace companies and defense electronics companies, and IBM made me an offer to work on the space shuttle onboard software, and so that was the closest to my of what I really wanted to do. So went to do that. Not only was I testing the software, which was kind of nice because you'd run simulated mission profiles and test the software. So again, it was a little bit like playing space shuttle. But I was also a software requirements analyst, so was actually involved in in reviewing the requirements for various software changes and new capabilities that were implemented in the software over the years. So so that was, that was my job, and did that for about 15 years, and then got an unsolicited job offer to become a project manager for a small company that had the contract to do what was called independent verification and validation, or IV&V, of the space shuttle software. And so with IBM, I never really was interested in management. In fact, my career development plan had an explicit statement in it: will not consider management under any circumstances. And then over the years, as I grew, it softened to would consider a management role under the right circumstances. And really the job offer to be a project manager was that right circumstances. It had enough of the technical side, technical responsibilities to keep me interested from that perspective, but then also doing management, managing the project and managing the people. And like I say, by that time I'd grown in various ways to transition from a typical nerd who wanted to be an engineer because he thought that way he wouldn't have to talk to people very much; he would just talk to computers. And
and now you're doing both.
Pro tip: engineering is about 90% communicating with other people. So
yeah,
yes, indeed. Well, I got a follow-up question with that. Since you did the shuttle programming and you did simulations, did you get a chance to meet any of the shuttle astronauts? And if so, who were some of the ones that stood out in your mind?
Yes, I did get to meet a number of them. When working on some of the software changes, we would attend meetings where the changes were discussed and planned, and so I met a number of different astronauts. Actually, for a couple of years at IBM, my office mate was the eldest daughter of Bob Crippen, who was the pilot for STS-1. So I got to meet him. We went up to his office in Building 1 at Johnson Space Center and met him there. And then I saw him again when I went to her wedding. But attended meetings with a lot of different people. I actually there was a software control board that, and this is more when I became the project manager of the software IV&V project. But I would go to that sometimes when I was in town, and we sat next to the astronaut office rep, and I actually talked to Willie McCool, who was the pilot for Columbia, and he was a great guy. I didn't know him all that well, but we chatted some, and the two space shuttle accidents, Challenger and Columbia, were really tough things to go through. Obviously, very tough for the astronauts and their families, but just as an organization as a whole. And I've seen two sitting U.S. presidents so far, and both of those have been at space shuttle memorials. And part of the reason that we did what we did on IV&V was to make sure that would never happen because of a software problem. And that was true also of the folks who were developing the software. When I was with IBM and on that side as well, we were very dedicated to making that software the safest it could possibly be because we knew that astronaut lives depended on it. And so.
Absolutely. And to let you know, Krista McCullough from the Space Shuttle Challenger is actually an alumnus of my college, Bowie State University. And we actually have a building named after her. So when I thought about going to the college and found out she was an alumni of my future school, that's one of the reasons why I went.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Excellent, excellent. Dean, did you have anything else that you wanted to add into that?
No, I think we can talk about the future of Starfleet. I'm going to start with the current CS of Starfleet, that we are now in our golden anniversary. And what do you see is going to happen in our organization beyond IC 2024? Where do you see the future of Starfleet?
Well, right now, and John brought this up in the very beginning, one of his, pardon the pun, trials and tribulations was the communication portion of it. And we have really taken, post-COVID, internet, all of this stuff, being able to do these kinds of Zooms, we have now taken our newsletter and fanzine to something that we can distribute directly to each individual member. We are what's going to happen in the next couple of years as we progress, maybe sooner, is that now we are starting to take that product and being able to make it available to the regions to better communicate locally, to the chapters to be able to communicate locally one step at a time. We are focusing in on our antiquated technologies. Quite a few years ago, there was a proposal that was accepted by the Admiralty Board to generate a new database. We are coming to fruition on that. Finally, we will have a brand new database that we knock on wood and cross our fingers. We don't ever have to say again that, oh no, something broke. The InfoServe, which is back in your day, they called it computer operations. But InfoServe, which is what we call now with Aaron Poole and Chris Poole, they are really working hard to make this database happen. Having to deal and work, like I said before, with international data protections, that those things all come in. As far as ICs go into the future, thanks to COVID, we now have 3 different models of an IC that we can do. This is going to be the first time that we're doing what we're calling the hybrid model. We have a digital option, we have an in-person option. I will pause here and say that the in-person is really something that is a camaraderie builder. It's great to see those faces. However, it doesn't quite touch everybody. Not everyone can come to an in-person IC. During COVID, we had the virtual ICs, and those were a lot of fun. We were using new technologies that were coming out. We had some great talent that were putting together all of our video production. This one's a hybrid, so we got the one piece of each. And there'll be certain things that the digital folks will get to see. The in-persons get to see pretty much everything. And there'll be also, there's going to be some interaction on the hybrid side that the people that are there obviously will see, but it's not directed at them. It's programming that's specific to the hybrid side. My VCS, Ryan Case, the CO of the USS Hayes, they are just Ryan is just doing a wonderful job putting this all together in Atlanta. And we really look forward to this one and what happens into the future. Now, obviously, to have an IC, we need people that want to create an IC and have that volunteerism put together. While we don't have any exact plans yet for the next 2 years, we are looking and seeking for bids for hybrid and VIC models. I think that the straight up in-persons without a digital version doesn't do everyone justice. So we've got to be able to be as inclusive as we possibly can. And, it just, my term is about halfway done. And, I got another year and a half of this. And then it's going to be figuring out, at least for me personally, what I'm going to do next. My chapter here in San Francisco, the USS Golden Gate, is going strong. We're over 100 members just unto ourselves. I'm working on increasing the size of fleet. I've done some travels in Region 9, which is Europe, the UK, Ireland. What a wonderful people. They were so welcoming when I was there. I'm actually headed to the Philippines at the end of this week to talk to a single chapter of 2,500 members. They're like they're at this place, John, where you were with the USS Enterprise, where they've got people all over the world. And they're a part of a different organization, but that doesn't mean that we can't talk to them as well and say, how can we complement you in your fandom? Because we all believe in IDIC, and we want to really try to incorporate all the people that are out there that love Star Trek. One of the things that I'd love to do is to get to India. India actually has their own Star Trek television show that's licensed. It's completely different. The uniforms are different, but it's licensed by Paramount. And I've seen snippets of it, and it's really, really interesting. But we have no members in India. Ryan Case just came back from Germany, and hopefully he got a couple of people to join up. I've seen a few from Germany. We haven't had anybody in Germany, but that's where one of the largest Star Trek conventions is in Germany, and they have hundreds of thousands of members there. So trying to build, not necessarily to be the biggest. We don't have to be the biggest, but we want to be quality. We want to protect our families. We want to protect our members. We don't deal with religion so much. We don't deal with politics so much. And when people start getting into that, they get shut down, or, we just don't go there. It's kind of like a big giant dinner table. But fandom going forward is always going to be an interesting thing. Paramount, at least for now, owns the franchise, and their purpose in life is to make money. That's not our purpose. We're not in this to make money. We're in this to do kind of what John was saying, is so that we can play Starship. We can have all the different departments, and now we have the auxiliaries and things that can expand our minds through the Academy and all of the wonderful programs that we do have. We just need to improve those. And like I said, we're doing that through technology.
Absolutely. Well, David just mentioned some of the travels that he's done, and I remember reading your bio, John, that you love to travel. And I want you to tell us, what were some of the best places you have traveled in your life? Because I can tell you my favorite places are Portugal and Hawaii. What are some of your favorites?
Oh, wow. Hawaii is definitely on there. I would have to say Cancun, because we go there like every year, sometimes multiple times a year.
I'm actually born in Hawaii.
Oh,
Really?
yeah, I remember.
I'm actually from there. My family's been there for many generations, and Hawaii is a wonderful place to go visit. I highly suggest people go.
Which island, if I may ask?
I was born on Oahu, raised on Maui. My hometown is no longer in existence. They're rebuilding. Unfortunately, it was just Lahaina was destroyed in a fire, um,
Mm-hmm.
and which is really sad. But it is my favorite place in Hawaii is to go to Molokai, where my family's got a vacation home that I go to. It's kind of I've been using it the past few years as like a little retreat for myself to just be in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice.
And then actually here recently we went to St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands,
Nice.
uh, and we went on a cruise. First time in almost 20 years. We went on the new gigantic Icon of the Seas,
Oh
and
wow.
but
Mm.
believe it or not, it even though we were there with over 7,000 of our closest friends and 2,000 crew members,
Mm.
most of the time it didn't seem crowded.
Right.
It's such a big ship, and there's so many different things to do that if you wanted to be off kind of by yourself, you could. So
For the last 5 years, they've actually had a Star Trek cruise.
yeah, I'm
Um,
part of that. Yeah.
and I've done the last two, and I'm doing this next one.
Hmm.
And boy, that is just a convention on steroids. It is so much fun and so amazing, and just 24/7. By the time you get off the ship, in this case, you're just so inundated with Star Trek, and you're exhausted. You're just exhausted because of all the late night. Um, but the cool thing about the cruises is, especially when they have talent on board, is you can actually walk up to them and talk to them.
Uh-huh.
Derek Wong was lounging by the pool, and people were just coming up and saying hi. Ethan Phillips walks by and in swim trunks and goes for a swim. And all of a sudden it's like the whole pool goes silent. Yeah. um, it's a very different experience than going to Vegas or any of the fan run conventions.
Mhm.
The food's good, just like the Icon. I think we were on the Navigator of the Seas, and I don't remember the name of the other one, but it's the smaller versions of them.
Mhm. Hmm.
But
I'll talk with
definitely a
you.
great.
I'll have to talk with you about that at IC, and we might.
Oh, absolutely. And if you wait till just before, they have rooms available.
Hmm.
You can get some of those rooms just before because a lot of people either drop out. This next one's out of Miami, so that's right in your neck of the woods,
Mhm.
at least closer than it is for me.
Yeah,
Um,
that's where we sailed on the Icon was out of Miami. So
Yeah,
yeah.
last year we sailed out of Port Canaveral,
Hmm. Okay.
Nice.
and then the previous year was out of Los Angeles. So, they do get around to different spots. But yeah, I look forward to talking with you about it. Um, so we
Yeah,
kind of talked.
one of these days we got to convince them to cruise out of Baltimore one of these days, and they're my neck of the woods. Hopefully one
Is
day.
Baltimore on the ocean?
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. Because
okay.
we do cruises up until we
Actually, I
had
have
that
neighbors.
bridge collapse, but they're now getting it fixed and repaired. So hopefully cruising will resume
Well, it
soon. I
is
hope.
it's a Royal Caribbean. So Royal Caribbean obviously has their all their spots that they go to. The
Mhm.
convention is licensed by Paramount.
Mhm.
So it has its own unique set of rules, but they seem to be much freer.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, getting a Doug hug is amazing. Having Saru take those really long arms and just wrap them around you and say hi is just an amazing thing for anybody.
Oh yeah.
Um, so that's sort of where those are the events that are coming up. The conventions post COVID have really started kicking into gear. Um, John, are you planning on doing any conventions other than IC, or actually going to something in Florida?
We haven't talked about anything like that yet. I don't know. We'll see. My
Do
wife
you have
is
an
coming.
interest? Do you have an interest?
Maybe. I don't know. My wife is coming to IC, so we'll see how that goes. I mean, she's she likes watching the shows, but she's not not the same level of interest as I was. So we'll see.
Sure. Well, the lucky thing about being on the West Coast is that a lot of the filming is done here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's in California or if it's further up in Canada. Um, and it really is amazing the level of conventioneering that happens on the West Coast between Comic Cons and we now we have this new circuit of fan expos that are all over the country. And being good Starfleet members, believing in IDIC and leaving politics at the door, going and having a good time and representing Starfleet is something that we need to, one, get better at, I freely admit, but we need to promote that going forward. So that's part of the some of the future plans. All right. So I guess at this point we're pretty much done with the conversation. Did you have a closing that you wanted to make, Dean?
Yes, I do. I got one final question, and this is directly to John. My question is this. What would you say to the members of Starfleet International who has been around for either 1 week, a few years, or decades to say thank you for helping to make this organization a reality and keeping it strong for 5 decades now? What would you like to say to them?
Well, I would say make the most of this opportunity that you've been given and that you've taken advantage of. It really is what you make of it. So if you aren't having a good time, that's probably your fault. If you are having a great time, that's thanks to your efforts as well. So make of it.
That's exactly how I would have answered that question too. The more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it.
Absolutely. Yep.
Indeed.
Well,
Well, this has been, I'm sorry.
no, please.
Well, gentlemen, this has been one of the best conversations I have ever had, and it has been an honor to talk to both the first Starfleet commander and the current Starfleet commander. We got the best of both worlds from the first to the 50th. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. It's been an honor.
Thank you very much, Dean, and thank you, John. As a final word, want to thank all of the participants of IC 24. We really look forward to seeing you walking around. Please do come up and say hello. For all the volunteers, that whether it's within my administration, whether they were within John's administration, and every volunteer in between, thank every single one of you for doing what you do, because you are the ones that are participating and getting the most out of the organization. So thank you all very, very much, and enjoy IC 2024.
Absolutely.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Dean.